What's going on, Steelers Nation? Jumping on here to recap Pittsburgh's big win over Cincinnati. Final score 44-38. This one was a thriller, man. We haven't seen this team win a shootout like that in quite some time. That was honestly something I was curious about, coming into the season, whether they were going to be able to compete in these sorts of games. And this kind of sort of checks the box in that way. So as always, just want to, jump on here, talk through the positives, negatives, everything in between just before we get started. If you guys could just hit that like button for me, hit the bell, drop me a comment. All that stuff is greatly appreciated on my end. I do want to get started just by talking about the offense, really just for obvious reasons. The Steelers just throttled the Bengals defense. I mean, it didn't even look competitive at times. Looked like they were throwing like routes on air. They were doing whatever they wanted, especially in the first half of this game. Whatever they wanted to do, throw the ball, they could do it. Run the ball, they could do it. Felt like a very balanced attack. I do want to give Arthur Smith his flowers. I thought the game plan starting out was outstanding. And the reason for that is just they got the screen game rolling. And like anytime you're facing, not that the Bengals pass rush has been very good this season because it hasn't, but they do have one dominant pass rusher, and that's Trey Hendrickson. We saw like Myles Garrett kind of take over the game last week. I thought they came out this week very intentional about, how they were going to try to slow him down. They were throwing a bunch of screens, getting the ball out of Russ's hands quickly, getting a bunch of easy check down completions. So I thought the game plan looked really nice. I thought they had a lot of good things working underneath. And then credit to Russ. I thought he was fantastic today. I mean, the box score looks great. You throw for over 400 yards. That's insane. 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. I thought obviously the pick six, we've all seen the replay. I think you could definitely argue that it's illegal contact or illegal hands to the face early on Pickens. Unfortunately, he falls down. Russ is trying to throw that with the anticipation. It's not on the quarterback, man. It's just a really unfortunate play. It happens from time to time. Thankfully, it didn't end up deciding the outcome of the game, but I really thought like from that point on, Russ was like nearly flawless in this one, to be honest with you. One of the things I liked that he did, like last year's matchup, the Bengals tried to come out and they tried to play a lot of too high, play a lot of cover two. Russ was doing a fantastic job. Like as soon as he was getting to the back of his drop, he was getting there, hitting the check down over the ball. They were playing a lot of Tampa. So that middle linebacker, that hook defender was getting a lot of depth, sometimes even back to like 10 yards. He was just dumping it off to the running back. Najee, Jalen, we saw Patterson, all guys get involved. He was just getting the ball out of his hands super quickly. And then as, the game kind of progressed, he started pushing the ball down the field more. Really nice route there from Calvin Austin to get a touchdown, a little 25-yard strike. Thought the ball was great. The route's excellent. Calvin has put some really solid film on display, I feel like, for the most part this season. I do think he's always going to have some limitations as a player, but as far as like a auxiliary piece, like one of those supporting cast members that you can be a little bit excited about, at least in a limited role for going into next season, I think he's definitely like showed me enough to where that's kind of how I feel about him. And then really you just look at like up and down the box score, man. They had 10 guys catch passes today. Russ was getting pretty much everybody involved. Freiermuth was huge on that 2-minute drive, like right before the half. We saw like a vintage, like prime Russell Wilson Seattle version scramble on that touchdown. Him kind of rolling out to his right, finding pad up the seam. Nice job by him finding the zone, avoiding in coverage there. I mean, it was a great performance, man. Like, I mean, another thing that I'd just like to mention, just in terms of getting the ball out quickly. Not just did he create like a bunch of really nice plays. I think he was 6 or 7 in this one, throws over 15 yards, but he also like reduced negative plays. I think the Bengals only had 10 sacks on the day, I thought. And one of those, I think, was kind of one of those moments like late in the game where it was just like he didn't want to throw it away because he didn't want to stop the clock. So kudos to him, man. Like Russ turned back the clock today. I think the obvious caveat that's necessary here is this is full stop one of the worst defenses in the NFL. That was one of the worst defensive performances I have seen this season, and I've watched a lot of ball, like I'm sure a lot of you guys have. Just an atrocious defensive performance. But having said that, like the quarterback did what he was supposed to do. The Steelers executed at a very high level, and they deserve credit for that. So I thought the offensive line in general, pretty good, man. I thought the offensive line really bounced back in a big way. I thought last week was pretty rough against Cleveland for obvious reasons. But Dan Moore Jr., hardly noticeable today. I'm interested to go back and kind of see like just how quickly or how much help they were getting him. Of course, the ball was coming out quickly, which is obviously an advantage to a left tackle like that. But I thought he bounced back in a positive way. Really only saw Hendrickson with like really like 1 or 2 like really quick wins, one of which came against Broderick Jones on the other side. They moved him over there a little bit later. So I thought Zach Frazier was fantastic. No pressures allowed for Frazier. On the afternoon, you go back and look at some of the blocks that he had on their best runs today, and it was it was impressive stuff, man. He was creating cutback lanes, getting to the second level, everything that you possibly like wanted to see from him. He did today. It was pretty awesome to watch. It's pretty tough for an offensive lineman, even someone like that good, to stand out in a positive way when you're just watching the live broadcast. But he was like jumping off my screen multiple times. I'm really excited to go back and watch the film of him. Even him and Samalo had their struggles last week. Passing off stunts, didn't get as much movement in the run game as they've really wanted to. But I thought that today was a really positive performance for all of those guys. And then I'd also just like to highlight the running game. It's been kind of tough sledding a little bit for Najee Harris over the last couple of weeks, really since that bye week. But today, really good. I mean, 43% rushing success rate. You like to see that. I thought on early downs, like this is huge. Early downs, they were 61% success rate, but they actually threw the ball a little bit more on early downs this week. I thought that was a good game plan. I thought they executed at a high level. And also just think like in general, like what have we been talking about every single week this season? It seems like, hey, we'd love to see the Steelers start faster on offense. And they did it. Like obviously the pick six isn't great to throw that on your first drive or whatever, but you look at their next 4 possessions, man, touchdown, field goal. I mean, that's pretty awesome. And I thought that it allowed them to kind of get the Bengals to press a little bit offensively. Granted, they still move the ball at will on their side of the ball, but you get the 2 turnovers, you get the splash plays on defense, and that's enough to win the game on the road. This is a game that the Steelers came in as underdogs, and I thought that they really executed, pretty perfectly, honestly, offensively, man. I mean, over 500 yards of offense. I mean, you cannot ask for anything more than that. So it was kind of cool to see them win in a different maybe form or fashion than we're used to seeing them win, just because I think that's always a quality of like the really, really good teams, right? You can be a good team, and if you only win like one or have a very specific way that you can come out on top. But I think the great teams in the league really are teams that can beat you offensively, can pick you up defensively, and kind of just win multiple ways. And I thought they did that today. Now defensively, it was a tough one. I'm not gonna lie. It was a rough performance for the Steelers defense overall. I really need to go back and watch the tape to see all of what was happening. Early on, I thought that the run game stuff, Chase Brown ripped off a couple explosives early on. That didn't really sustain. I think part of that was just because the Bengals were pretty much playing from behind for a majority of part of that second half. Ogunjobi got sealed big time on the 40-yard run that set him up at the goal line. But I just thought like space and coverage was just not. I mean, there was just so much of it in their zone looks today. I know the broadcast kept making a big deal of Porter, shadowing Higgins and Jackson being more on Chase, but it seemed like it was mostly zone coverage. Today they were trying to do those, kind of have those guys matched up on the Cincinnati wide receivers. But I really thought, obviously Porter's called for 6 penalties in this game. I don't know that I've ever seen that. It was obviously a rough one for him. I think a couple of those you could argue are a little bit ticky-tack, but I mean, at the same time, Porter's got a reputation for being really physical, being a little bit over aggressive, and kind of like what we talked about a couple times now this season, because this is his 3rd game of the season, having at least 3 penalty flags thrown in his direction. He just really struggles to adjust. And I even saw a quote post game saying that like he wasn't going to let the refs alter the way that he plays. And like, I understand that, like, you obviously don't want to take that aggressive mindset, that competitiveness away from him. But at the same time, like, there's going to be matchups like today where teams are just going to be able to pick at him and take advantage because of how the refs are officiating the game that day. And it can be really consistent. Like I said, I'm more of a guy that likes to let him play out there on the boundary. I'm always going to kind of favor the corners first. But there was just a couple sloppy plays, too, from him in coverage that really are just inexcusable. So tough one for him. But I thought overall, it was a really rough day just for the defense as a whole, over the middle of the field in particular. I mean, Cincinnati converted a 3rd and 21 on the day. You look back at just some of the numbers from them offensively, 55% success rate. That's just an absurd number, especially for a defense this talented to give that up. Did get the 2 splash plays, which was really nice, but just far too easy for Cincinnati moving the ball through the air in this one. T. Higgins continues to kind of – I will be very glad that T. Higgins only has hopefully one more game against the Steelers in the division. He walks elsewhere, preferably in the NFC. He had 5 catches, 69 yards in this one. I don't know how many first downs via penalty, but he also scored. Chase scored as well, 86 yards. Just not particularly their best day. I did think the defensive line, the front in general, played fairly well. You just look at like some of the numbers from those guys. Nick Herbig, I thought he could have had an even bigger day if the refs would have decided to ever call Orlando Brown for leaving early off the line of scrimmage because he was jumping and like he would sometimes get 2 kicks in before the ball was snapped. It was outrageous. But Herbig continues to just flash every time he's on the field, man. This is a good problem to have. When your third edge rusher is this dynamic of a player, it's pretty special. The Steelers have something really impressive, I think, with Nick Herbig. Like the way that he's played this season in relief has been honestly, it's been a life changer to be honest. But I thought that really across the board, TJ had a really nice rebound game after being really quiet last week. An uncharacteristically poor game from him. You just look at him like he had 5 pressures today, led the team in that regard. Cam Hayward. I've said this a couple times on social media, and I really mean it. I'm not sure if I've actually said it on the channel, but I actually think Hayward's been their best and most consistent, most impactful defensive player this season. Um, but I honestly think like he should be in the running for like defensive player of the year. It's been kind of a weird defensive player of the year race all season long, just because of like some of the dynamics that are going on with some of the bigger players, some of the defenses around the league. But Hayward's been as good and as consistent as anybody else has been around the league. Of course, that interception that gets picked off by Dante Jackson, he gets a hand on that ball, forces a turnover. He had a tackle for a loss on the goal line today. He had another sack on Burrow where he pretty much like long armed, just forklifted somebody like 10 yards in the backfield. They started a new left guard today. It didn't matter. Like he still dominated. So, yeah, I mean, Cam Hayward, I ran out of really things to say about him, but the fact that he's having this type of season at 35 years old is pretty unbelievable. I thought the Cam Hayward would still be a good player this year and bounce back a little bit, but I had no idea that he was going to dominate like this. And credit to him, man. Like a lot of people and he's doing it, man, at a really high level right now. So, pretty good performance, I thought, from the front. I thought the linebackers in general, it's a rough one, I thought, really, for Patrick Queen. Just a couple times where it felt like he got kind of juked out in space, a couple missed tackles. Again, like some of the middle of the field stuff was things that like I haven't really seen offenses be able to really attack them on this year. They just feel like a lot of space over there. So I'm really interested to go back and look at the film and see like this is a dynamic Cincinnati passing offense. So you got to give them credit too. Like these Burrow, like one of the best quarterbacks. I said he was playing better than he has really throughout his career. Higgins, Chase, both like 1A type wide receivers in the league. But you're going to face good passing offenses in the playoffs too. You're going to face good quarterbacks, and this unit needs to play better. If they expect to win games like that, on a regular basis. So it was nice to see the offense kind of pick the defense up. Boz continues to play at a really high level. Of course, he had the kick block today, but he's been nails, man, throughout the season. And I thought, it was nice to see him nail another 50-yarder. He's already got 10 50-yard field goals this year, y'all. It's his career high. 10 50-yard field goals. He's like 10 for 12, I think, on those tries. Just pretty phenomenal season for him. And then Mike Tomlin, you got to give credit to him getting his boys ready to go on the road, come out with a huge win. To kind of keep the pace, keep the lead in the AFC North. Baltimore's playing right now. We'll see what they do. But should be a really good week to dive into the film. I'll have plenty of content up for you guys soon. We will do something offensive related. I think I want to do Russ, maybe like a full Russ breakdown or something like that. And then we maybe do something else for the channel members or vice versa or something like that. Going to try to have 2 film rooms up this week. I'm almost close to like fully healthy again. I'm feeling a little bit better today. Still a little bit under the weather, but we're close to being back. So I really appreciate you guys' continued support. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Peace and love.